All right, so some little known facts. I taught middle school and I am really not afraid to shout over the people in the back, so no worries, you're all gonna be able to hear me. I also have this funny accent because I'm not British. I'm from the US, but I live in Spain. So wearing a jacket and it being all gray, I'm not really keen to all that, but apparently Barry put me after the tea break for a reason because he felt that I could keep you all awake. So as part of that, we're going to do a bit of audience participation. So you know how when you're at a concert and the band wants you to sing along, what do? They point the mic, right? I can't do that. I'm not going to like lean my whole body out into the audience so you get the mic. I'm just going to point at you. Okay, and this is how easy it is. When I point at you, you have to say the title of my talk. And in case you forget it, it's right here. All right? So now, I know we've all just had, what, pancakes and strawberries and whipped cream. I don't know what all y'all were eating, but it was like a pile of sugar and carbs. So I expect when I point that the response I get back has a whole lot of vim and vigor, because I need you to get that sugar out of you. Okay? So I've had a lot of people, even today, ask me, why is your talk named this? Like, what is this? So there's a little story. I was brought into a software consulting company to fill a gap that they had. They needed a transformation coach. And they needed a transformation coach because they had somehow convinced an existing client that they, a software company, could do an organizational transformation. And they thought they could do it because what they really thought they were doing was helping the client create new process. Anybody already see where this is going? Now, the customer was in a bit of a pickle because for 25 years they had worked the same way. Everyone worked in silos, doing their own thing, and as a result or a reward, they got huge bonuses and commissions. So what was the push for any of them to change? Because what was the first question that was asked? What's going to happen to my pay? So they were really hesitant to change. However, banking laws in the US are changing next year dramatically. And if this organization does not change, they are going to go the way of Blockbuster Video. You're all like, what's a Blockbuster Video? Okay. Blockbuster Video was a VHS rental company in the US where you could go and buy, like going to the library, you could get 4 or 5 videos at a time and go home and watch them and bring them back and get other things. Well, what happened to it? It no longer exists because as the market was changing, they didn't change. So this company realized that if they kept doing things the way they were doing them, and they kept having everybody working 12 and 14-hour days, there was no way for them to sustainably keep up with the banking chart changes that were happening next year that were going to allow them to process title and escrow 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can't do that if you have single points of failure, right? And if you have people already working 12 and 14 hours. So they brought this software company in that convinced them that they could help them do this org change, who then brought me in because they went, oh, wait, hold on. There's stuff here. So we started the first meetings for them to catch me up on what had been happening. And they said, well, we've just spent a year doing discovery, and I don't know what's wrong with these people, referring to the client, the banking client. I don't know what's wrong with these people. They haven't hired the new teams yet. And we've already finished discovery. We don't know what they're waiting for. And this message had gone the whole way up to the top of the software company, so that the vice president was calling the vice president at the banking organization and telling him that his people were falling down on the job. At which point I said, I know I'm the new girl here, but is it possible they don't actually know how to hire the new team or who they should even be hiring? Because I've been here 3 weeks and I've yet to see a roadmap or even short-term goals, so I don't actually know what you're trying to do. How would they possibly know what you're trying to do? And they all went, nah, I mean, they just need to hire people. And I said, no, they don't just need to hire people. The entire transformation is about changing how they're working. If they keep hiring people the same way they've been hiring them, what's going to happen? Well, if you keep doing the same thing, are you going to get different results? Absolutely not. So they just kind of poo-pooed me, and I started thinking, why am I here? I thought I was here for a reason, but if they're just going to poo-poo everything I say, then why am I really here? So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to go talk to the managing director for the banking institution who was responsible for this transformation and see if I couldn't get her to at least tell me what she was thinking and feeling about this and where she was in that space and time. And she unloaded pretty quickly that she didn't even understand what was happening. She was basically plucked out of the air and told she was in charge of this. And yes, she understood the banking regulations that were changing because that was her world and she understood them, but she didn't understand this whole project that was happening or what her role is and what she was supposed to be doing. So I thought, all right, well, we now know where we need to start with this, don't we? So I did some coaching with her, got her on board with what I thought the trajectory needed to be. Did she buy into that? Did she agree with it? And she said, yeah, it sounds good, but I don't know how to hire these people. Ding, ding, ding. And I said, okay, well, I think then we know where we need to start. So I went back to the software company, to the engagement manager, and I updated him on this. And I said, you know, as I suspected, they don't know where to start because they don't know where we're going. And he said, I realize I'm not Bob Dylan, but can we do better? All right, ready? Okay, second chance. You only get 3. Okay, that was way better, but let's just do it one more time, just to make sure. That is what he said to me, word for word. He said, okay, I get what you're saying, but I didn't know there was all of this people stuff. And I said, okay, well, if this transformation is going to be successful, then you're going to have to move over here and let me work with the managing director and put this together, or we are never going to get this off the ground. And he kind of hemmed and hawed and said, okay, fine, but you know, we don't have all the time in the world because we've already lost all these months because they didn't hire anybody. And I said, that's fine. In 6 weeks from the time the team onboards, we will be ready for process and tools. Apparently he thought I was joking, because as you can all tell, I have a very wicked sense of humor. So I can see how I'm in a meeting explaining what we're doing and he thinks I'm joking. So here's what we did. You're like, oh my God, is she going to get off the title slide now? Here's what we did. So the first thing we did was we changed their interviewing process. They were used to interviewing people where all they had to do was look at resumes or CVs and go tick, 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 tick. They have these qualifications. They have these, certifications. They have this degree. Fine, we can hire them. That wasn't going to work for a team that had to work together, to be able to communicate together, to be able to collaborate. So we had to change the interviewing process. To do that, the leadership team needed to understand the people they needed to hire. So we went through quite a few exercises of looking at, okay, yes, we put out this horrid job description that was a tick list of nonsense. But when we interview people, what are we really looking for to create a team? And then we went through the process of interviewing. And the process was to interview as a team, none of this individual interviews where one person didn't know what the other person was asking and then whatever. And when we were practicing, because yes, we practiced interviewing, one of the women raised her hand on the Zoom call and she said, "How do I know when it's my turn to talk?" So that gave me a lot of insight into where they were in terms of operating as a team and collaborating and communicating. There was a lot of underlying work to be done there. It wasn't as simple as let's just get a team and build a process. The second thing we did was onboarded the team on the same date. This company was used to just putting out offer letters and they'd put a start date that was 2 weeks from the time their financial background checks were finished. And they never started people at the same time, even if they were working in the same office. So one of my, I don't have many things where I put my foot down because it's a big foot and it can hurt, is onboarding the team at the same date. And there was a reason that we're going to get into. And that reason was we spent 1 week on liftoff, on team onboarding, not on worrying about how do we do escrow and insurance and banking and timesheets and whatever else, right? Then, as a team, they planned where they wanted to go. Not some consultant telling them what the next steps were, not someone else in the organization saying, but this is how we do it. As a team, they determined their path. And then we revisited that liftoff board, especially the working agreement, at least once a week. There were some weeks where it was every day. So what is a liftoff? You all know what a kickoff is, right? We've all done kickoffs, yes? Anybody not done a kickoff? Okay, how effective are they? Well, there's your answer. So this team was unique for the company in that it was the first time they were going to hire an all remote, always remote team. That was a brand new thing for them. They always went to offices because things had to be mailed and faxed and copied and all the other things you do in banking. So all remote, always remote was new for them. Different time zones was different for them. Not knowing if they could hire somebody from outside of the US as long as they were a US citizen was different for them. So we spent a week on this onboarding. Now, that's not the whole board. That's only a part of it. And we went through everything from understanding what the vision of the organization was to the mission. And as we were going through this, the team had questions that went the whole way up to the vice president to get clarification. We talked about how are we going to know in 3 months that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons? What are our mission tests? Then we worked on alignment. And this one had a huge impact on them. But before we got there, as I was explaining this to the managing director, she rolled her eyes so fiercely that I was afraid they were going to get stuck in the back of her head. And I thought to myself, she's on the East Coast of the US, and if she needs medical supervision, I don't even know where she lives. What are we going to do? And she did it 3 times in one meeting as I'm describing this collaborative process that we're going to go through. So I took her aside after and I said, I sense some tension here. And she's like, this is a lot of stuff. She didn't say people stuff. She goes, I don't know if we should spend this much time on this. I said, we're going to spend a week. And we're not even going to spend 8 hours a day for a week. We're going to spend about 4. And then the rest of the time, they're going to have time to do coffee chats, walking chats, get to know each other, some skills building if they need skills. They're going to have other things to do. But this is vitally important. So I asked her, can you give me 1 week? And at the end of the week, if you don't like the direction we're going, you and I will sit down and we will change it. We didn't change it. So we went through this whole thing. We did the alignment. Who am I? If you don't know who you're working with on a team and how they need to interact with you, how do you solve the big problems? You don't even solve the small problems. You get to a speed bump and you all trip and fall down. So this alignment on who am I and how are we similar and different and what skills do we need and how are we going to fill the gaps was the most important part, as you're going to see in a minute. And then where are our boundaries and interactions? Who do we have to work with? Where are the lines? And what does the future look like for us? As a team, what do we want out of this? Regardless of what the organization wants, what do we want out of this? So this is some of the feedback after that week. And what came out of it is that we did not only team building, but connecting and qualifying. We showed value and we built skills. And out of that, they went, we have some skill gaps that we didn't expect. They put together their own training plan for their team of how they were going to level up skills, not just technical skills, but communication and collaboration skills. The team lead said to me, she goes, I need help working with a remote team. I'm lost. You do all of this great collaborative stuff, and I don't know what to do. And together, they built their own training program. And they took the liftoff and the training program, and they built something that was repeatable, that they could use when they onboarded the next team and the next team. And next thing, they had other people in the organization saying, hey, what's that thing you did with that board with all the colors on it? Can we do that? And people that weren't even part of this project were interested in what they were doing. So here are some statistics in case you don't want to believe me about the importance of people, because, you know, who am I? This is a recent study done by Team Stage 2022. 46%. Company culture is an important factor for 46% of job seekers. So basically half. I don't know what the other half are looking at, but basically half. 86% of job seekers avoid companies with a bad reputation, which means you're only taking a job with a bad company if you don't have any other options. And what does that build? Nothing. 69% of employees would work harder if they received more recognition. People just want to know that what they're doing is valuable, right? Around 63% of US companies find it harder to retain than to hire. And wait, why is that? Because I don't have a nice enough computer? No, it's about people. 33%, attracting high caliber employees leads to a 33% revenue increase. That's not nothing. Highly engaged employees can lead to a 202, that is not a typo, by the way, 202% increase in performance. Because after all, if everybody is aligned on the vision and the mission and they're all going in the same direction, what happens? And they all want to work together and they understand how to work together, what happens? And the last one, team leaders have the highest impact on company culture. The people you put in leadership roles have 100% of the impact. Leadership is not a person or a position. Anybody disagree with that? I'm happy to debate it. There's more coffee, I'm sure. It is a complex moral relationship between people based on trust, obligation, commitment, emotion, and a shared vision of the good. A shared vision of the good. And what we did with this team by doing this liftoff was we created that shared vision of the good. And the feedback that they gave was, it's not that we weren't going to have problems. This transformation is huge. But we knew how to work together and how to overcome them because we talked about it before we started digging into process. And by the way, at the end of the 6 weeks, they were ready for their process and their tools, and the consulting company was not, because they didn't believe me when I said this team was going to be powered up and ready for action in 6 weeks. So at the end of the day, it is all about the people stuff, and every transformation is 100% about the people stuff. All the other things are supporting. And that is the power of liftoff.